Hello, everyone, and thank you for registering for our free video, New Tax Option for Texas Realtors. I'm excited that the Texas Real Estate Commission has adopted these rules from the Texas legislature that has recently passed, and we'll talk about the nuts and bolts about that. But I do business in 29 other states, and most all other states already have a similar rule on the books, and they're already taking advantage of the loopholes that have been opened up for them. I just have not been able to promote this in the state of Texas at my home base here. So a little introduction to myself. I've been a CPA for 28 plus years, based here in Texas. I've been a former chief financial officer for various industries, so I can personally relate to the trials and tribulations that you have as a business owner as well too. In the long run, I'd love to have your long-term business. We'll walk you through the steps of from beginning to end on how to take care of these things if you choose to do business with us, and would love to have you on board. In the meantime, let's get on to the next slide and talk a little bit about the details here. Yes, on this slide here, we got in the upper left-hand corner, my Tax Shield logo as part of our tax planning services that we can provide for you and or others. Up toward the top, you'll see a lot of my other partners, former IRS agents, CPAs, tax attorneys that I deal with. Some of them are even out of state. On the upper right-hand corner, we got the tax mob photo. What is the tax mob, right? Well, this is a group of individuals and all based in their former IRS agents and CPAs and tax attorneys and a whole group of us that are vetted professionals that meet once a year. We're about in our fourth annual year here. We had our last conference in Nashville in June of 2023, so a lot of talented people here and speakers there as well. In the lower left corner, we got want to focus in on my partner Mike Sullivan, former IRS agent, has been in the business for 50 years. He founded this initial group. I'm an administrator and tax group expert in the field, and you'll notice we got 4,500 vetted tax professionals in this group, so very wealthy group of knowledge base going there. Over on the right lower side, this is the 29 states that I do business in. You can see I've got the southern half of the United States all wrapped up, even including Hawaii down here in the bottom. So maybe one day I'll have all 50 states, right? But anyway, working toward that. Let's get on to the next slide and get into the nuts and bolts of what we're going to be talking about. Okay, so on the agenda today, what are we covering? We got, let me get my laser pointer out again here. Love this laser pointer. What is the new Texas Realtor Law and when will it be effective? How does this apply to you? What is the sole proprietor business and how the taxation's being taxed? That's most likely where you're currently at. And then what is pass-through entity taxation if we do start up a new tax entity structure for yourself? And then we're going to talk a little bit about tax prep or tax preparation versus tax planning and what are the next steps, and then some closing information slide for you to take advantage of. Let's take a moment for the next slide. All right, so what is this new Texas Realtor Law? This law was passed by the Texas Senate Bill 1577, specifically Section 9. You can find this if you Google it on the internet. It's kind of like reading some Greek law unless you're an attorney. But Section 9 basically spells out this a couple of different bullet points here. So an agent that receives compensation on behalf of a broker or sales agent by the license holder while engaged in real estate services. And the second bullet point, performs no other acts of a broker. Very basically, what they're trying to get at here is before brokers were able to take advantage of this loophole and guide their earnings into an LLC setup, possibly an S corp, and take advantage of the tax laws to their advantage. So what they're creating is this additional tax loophole, for lack of better words, for the agent. So they just want to make sure that you're not performing any other acts of a broker by giving you this leeway to do that. The other third bullet point here must be an LLC or an S corp. We're going to talk more about that. I get a lot of questions in many other industries, well beyond just realtors, as to, hey, I got an LLC, but do I need to start up an S corp, and can my LLC? And that's a lot of confusion going on there, so I'm going to explain that. Registered with the you need to be registered with the Texas Real Estate Commission. The registration process is pending final guidance right now, exactly how they're going to do that. Are they going to have a web link, how much the fees are, etc. It's not much. I thought the fees were going to be like $150 or something like that, but don't quote me on that. They'll come out with some more guidance and exactly how to register. That registration process is going to be playing out. The only other thing is they want you to be 51% owner of this business. So the agent itself receiving these commissions payable to an LLC name type deal, they want you to be at least 51% owner of that. Very likely you're going to be 100% owner, like most all my other clients across the United States. Could you have another partner involved in the LLC? Sure, you could. Why would you want to do that? I don't know. Maybe there's some of you out there that have a good reasoning for that, but in my experience, most all my license holders are 100% owners there. So let's move on to the next slide here, and we'll talk about when the law will be effective. Hello. I just wanted to interject an additional slide here. You notice I'm wearing a different shirt, right? Well, the commission met on November 6th, and as I mentioned earlier in the video here, but I went back and reviewed the actual video of the commission to pick out some certain key points that are of somewhat importance that I want to convey to you. So some of the specific items that they pointed out, the commission board itself had some concerns that when the LLC or S corp will be defined with the Secretary of State as a special purpose entity specifically for real estate agents. The Texas Real Estate Commission counsel or attorneys on staff at the meeting inferred this is tough to regulate, and they do not do that currently with the brokers. So basically, I don't see this as a big sticking point, because when you register with us, we're going to register you as a real estate agent and setting that business up. I guess there could be some ulterior motives out there by other people that want to have a different purpose for their LLC entity, and maybe they're going to sell widgets on the side instead of real estate commissions. So this is really a moot point. If you want to, I encourage you to go to this shortcut video. If you want to pause the video and type in this website address here, it'll take you to basically a 2+ hour discussion for the whole deal. But if you zero in at the hour and 20-minute mark through the hour and 39-minute mark, they really address these topics that I'm talking about right here on the slide. So if you want to shortcut it, just listen to me, move on down the road. I also want to throw out a disclaimer. I am not an attorney, so I'm just regurgitating the information that I saw right on the video itself. Notification will be received that the business entity is exempt from being licensed and is approved. So you're going to get some sort of paper document, or they'll email you a PDF. I would encourage you, hang on to that piece of paper. That's going to be kind of your paper that you would hand over and maybe give a copy to the broker that's going to be issuing commissions to you. In addition to that, there was some speculation that brokers are going to need to have access to the online registration portal to make sure that somebody has properly registered their LLC or S Corp. Makes sense to me. If the broker is going to be held responsible, um, maybe they don't want to just go with that piece of paper that you're handing them, telling them you're approved. Maybe they want to see it online with some sort of registration list. Makes sense to me. But anyway, so on to our next slide here, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, so when is this new Texas realtor law going to be effective? TREC, or Texas Real Estate Commission, as the acronym you're probably well familiar with, ratified the rules on November 6, 2023, and the effective date is going to be January 1st, 2024. So we'll talk about some of the nuts and bolts of how this is going to play a part on the timeline. So why do we need to get moving now? Well, we need to get moving on setting up the LLC now so that we can take advantage of this when January 1st rolls around. So we'll talk more about the details on the next slides, and I'm going to talk about how this applies to realtors. All right, so how does this apply to you, the realtor out there, right? Well, what I've said so far, does it sound complicated? Well, maybe some of you might think so, but no, not really. There's a few moving pieces to this, but we're going to take some baby steps and helping you walk across the finish line, and we'll get to that point. So on the next few slides, we're going to discuss if you do nothing, what's going to happen, and that'll keep you as a sole proprietor. I'm going to talk about the implications of staying a sole proprietor and the extra taxes that you're contributing toward the government and along the way. Or you can make the tax planning move like the big boys do, and we'll talk more about that as well. So let's move on to the next slide, where we're going to talk about the sole proprietor taxation and the extra taxes that you're probably paying. All right, so we're on the slide to talk about sole proprietor taxation and what that means to probably 99% of you watching this video. And we're going to talk about the details of the self-employment tax as it relates to you, most likely. 15.3%. Let me get my pointer out here. Love this pointer. 15.3 self-employment tax. Where does that number come from? Okay, let's talk about when you were a W-2 wage earner, maybe one of your first jobs that you had taxes taken out. You had federal withholding, but you had Social Security, Medicare tax. Okay, Social Security tax is 6.2%, Medicare tax is 1.45%. You add those two together, it's 7.65%. That's the employee's share of the taxes, the payroll taxes on that side of the equation. Now, the employer is required to match that 7.65%. So you add those two together, the 7.65 from the employer and the 7.65 from the employee, add them together, that's 15.3%. When you are a sole proprietor, you're employing yourself. Therefore, you have to pay the employee share and the employer share to the government. That's where you get stuck with high taxation on a sole proprietor Schedule C form on your 1040 report, 1040 tax return. So we're going to talk about how to avoid that self-employment tax by moving into a different tax entity structure. And some people are saying, yeah, but if we avoid that, then my money that I'm sending in, the 15% I'm sending in now goes to the government for my future Social Security. Well, yes, it does. But you're probably going to get 10 cents on the dollar 20 years from now when you get your retirement check. And on top of that, if you had like I put down in the second bullet tab here, if you had $100 bill, do you want a $100 bill today or do you want a $100 bill 20 years from now. Actually, that $100 bill is going to be more like $10 20 years from now. So we're going to talk about how to avoid that self-employment tax, and we're going to explain that on the next few slides here. Thank you. Okay, so explaining an LLC versus an S Corp. Okay, I get this question all the time from various different industries out there. Basically, when you start up on this first circle here, the state of Texas entity creation, we're going to set that up for you. We can do that, not a problem. We do that all the time. We do it almost daily here. But once you have this LLC set up, you can decide whether you want an S Corp or not. So a lot of people come to me and think, okay, I got an LLC set up, Joe, but do I need to start an S corporation in addition to my LLC? And they get confused on that. You're not starting another corporation by setting up the S Corp. Let me make that very clear. We set up your LLC for you at the state level. Then we decide if we want the S Corp federal tax election to piggyback on your existing LLC. Okay, we're not starting another S Corp at the state level. So I just want to be clear on that. So, and the second bullet point here, S Corp is not a type of entity. It's just simply a federal tax election, just like I mentioned. So the last bullet point, what happens if I don't choose an S Corp election for my LLC? So if you set it up as an LLC and you don't take the S Corp election, you're going to default from a federal tax perspective back to filing on a Schedule C on your 1040 report, just like you've probably done the past 2, 5, 10 years or more. The only difference in that would be in setting up the LLC, you're going to have some liability protection built in there at the state level with your liability protection, but you're not going to have that advantage on the S Corp. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about if an LLC is right for you in our consultation. We'll talk about when you contact us, but basically, and we'll also talk about if an S Corp is right for you to elect, and we'll talk more about that as we move forward. Now let's talk about on the next slide. We're going to be talking about tax preparation versus tax planning, and want to explain that in a few slides there. All right, so on this slide we got tax prep versus tax planning. Tax prep, short for tax preparation. What is tax prep versus tax preparation? So basically, once you get involved into an LLC or potentially taking the S Corp election, there's some maintenance that you need to do for your new tax vehicle, right? It's like having a vehicle, and every 5,000 miles you need an oil change to make sure it's running properly. Same with the tax vehicle that we're going to be moving into. It requires a little bit more maintenance along the way. There's some things that we got to keep you in line with, and to keep you in line with the federal requirements along the way to keep you in compliance. So that's where tax planning takes a little bit more of an active role versus just tax preparation. 95+% of the tax preparers out there prepare your return once a year, forget about you, call them next year, same time, right? Repetitive nature. You need to take a little bit more active approach. This is going to save you lots and lots of taxes, most likely, if the entity's right for you. And if it is right for you and you do take advantage of it, just realize there's a few little maintenance steps along the way. So in the logistic part of it, our tax shield program, that's basically our tax planning program that we have here at Hopkins CPA firm. We're going to walk you through the short maze, and every step of the way we're going to hold your hand and get involved with you throughout the year, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. Growth. with proper tax planning, it is very likely we can achieve a $15,000 savings per year for every $100,000 in real estate commissions on that come out on your net profits. So yes, that's a lot of money. So if you're only making $50,000 a year, well, that still could equate to $7,500 in savings. And so we're going to talk more about that and how the tax planning will play a role for you on the next slide. One of the other notes that comes to mind is you're probably familiar with Warren Buffett, the billionaire. Warren Buffett's been quoted as saying he honestly should be paying more taxes, right? Who in their right mind would say I should be paying more taxes? Well, Warren Buffett realizes that there's these tax loopholes that he takes advantage of, and probably everybody else in America should be taking advantage of them too. So we're going to kind of walk you through that finish line of how to take advantage of those tax loopholes like Warren Buffett. So let's talk more on the next slide and we'll get going there. All right, so title up here, Taxpayer Annual Tax Advisory Service Cycle. So TAS is just short for Tax Advisory Services, and that's what we're going to be preparing for you if you choose to do business with us. I'm going to keep this slide very short, but basically you see this green bar all the way across, see how solid it is. That's our commitment to you to stay involved with you year round. Make sure you get through these small little hurdles along the way and taking advantage of your new tax planning vehicle, so to speak. I think I can even point with my right hand here is November and December across the way, just like pointing on the videos. Anyway, what does your tax preparer currently do? Well, they may be talking to you once or twice, at the beginning of tax season, or up here when it's time to file your extensions, and you talk to them about once a year. They may or may not talk to you about your quarterly estimate payments that are going on through the year. We're going to walk you through that as well too. I do tax resolution services, meaning on the side as well too. It's one of our main services here. Everybody that comes in our door and across the nation that has tax problems, owes big tax assessments, all are 1099 employees. W-2 employees don't get in trouble because they get taxes taken out of their check. It's very important to be part of this tax planning cycle where we hold your hand through the whole process. But in doing so, let's make those estimated tax payments. We'll show you how to do it. We'll keep you involved, and as you decrease or increase each year, we'll strategize with you on doing that. So with that being said, let's talk about what your tax preparation person's probably doing for you at this point in time on the next slide. Okay, so what is your current tax preparer doing for you on their tax preparation? Probably not much. Like I said before, talk to you once a year. I'm not going to spend much time on this. They may do a tax entity calculation, prepare your tax return. Hi, bye, see you later. So this is your CPA or other tax preparer doing very little for you, not much going on to help you save on this side of the equation. So on the next slide, we're going to be talking about what our Tax Shield program does and how it can benefit you. Okay, on this video, tax advisory services through Tax Shield. Here's our Tax Shield that I was talking about that in our tax planning program. In our tax advisory services, we talk about your taxes owed beforehand, implement strategies, tax owed afterward. What you got to realize, if you do decide to set up an LLC and possibly an S Corp, yes, we're going to save on self-employment taxes, big savings along the way, but that's just the first step. There's many other things that we can do based on your family needs and other things that we can take advantage of to save additional taxes, and that's where the tax planning advisory services coming in. I have the best program software support system in the nation for 1,500 plus different tax strategies that we can implement for your new business and take into account your particular lifestyle along the way. So, at the very bottom line here, just want to point out, this is huge savings opportunities, especially when the interest rates rising in the market and things are getting squeezed out there. I have realtors again all over the United States. The market is down everywhere. I get it. Even more reason why we need to tax plan and not send in the taxes to the government, right? And then once we have this in place, you'll have it forever. We'll talk about this, each year as your lifestyle changes and make adjustments for you. On the next slide, we're going to be having a little graphic image about a visual of what kind of tax loopholes are out there for you. Okay, so very short discussion here. Your prior tax preparer tax savings is just kind of what you see above the water. This is probably all you've been aware of all your life. You just relied on him. Whatever he says goes. We're going to take you to the next level. There's so much more that we can do, as I mentioned in the previous slide, with our tax shield program and tax planning for you throughout the year and customize it to your particular family and business needs along the way. So you pick which tax loopholes you want. Do you want the top or do you want the bottom, right? So I'm going to leave it with that. On the next slide, we're just going to talk about what are the next steps and where we go from here. Okay, so what are the next steps? All right, free consultation. Just give us a call or a text to this phone number. Pause the video if you need to. Take down this number. More than likely, we've already got your information in our software system, so you can call or text. We should be able to recognize your name from there. We'll give you a free consultation. We'll talk through it. Go through it with you. Basically, what are we going to be talking about on the phone? We're just going to, if you don't need a different entity choice, I'm not going to pressure you into doing anything that doesn't make sense for you. So what are we going to very simply do? We're going to discuss whether the LLC setup and what it can do for you. We'll discuss the proper time to make a potential S-Corp election, if that makes sense for you. And also what you need to do on your end. If we do set up this LLC and S-Corp for you, you will need to register this with register the new entity with TREC or the Texas Real Estate Commission. And like I mentioned before, their registration process is under review, exactly how they're going to register with web link and fees and things like that. So stay tuned. We'll figure that out for you as well too. Let me circle this orange section here, right? I just want to point out, not all realtors may find it beneficial to make the switch to an LLC or an S-Corp. What's the reason for maybe not switching? Probably one of the main reasons is limited income could be a mitigating factor for making that switch. Why would that be a problem or be an issue? If you're making $5,000 or $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, you're probably not paying a whole lot of self-employment tax to make the switch worthwhile, so to speak. Now, if you're making, probably minimum 50, but more like $60,000, $75,000, there's a high chance that we may urge you to move into an S-Corp type entity. We're going to talk more about that. There's some other things, maintenance items that we need to talk about, and we'll talk more about those in details along the way. But reasons why, and the teal green here, reasons why I should create a new tax vehicle. Potential large tax savings, shield your legal liability, just being open-minded to tax planning, because there are many other expense deduction opportunities that we can do beyond just self-employment tax, as I mentioned earlier. And last item I do bullet point is the ability to engage tax planning with a knowledgeable CPA firm for those maintenance items that are required for an LLC and S corp setup. So, with that being said, we're approaching the last slide here on the next slide, and we'll wrap it up. Okay, at our last slide here, thank you for sticking with us. Tax Shield by Hopkins CPA firm, we've implemented this nationwide with lots of different industries, but especially in the realtor groups across the nation. So I'm just thankful that Texas has stepped up to the plate and opened this opportunity for you. Please visit us at www.texasrealtorcpa.com, and you'll find out more about our landing page if you haven't already visited it. And you can text or call the 361-360-3855. That's our group communication line. All of our staff are able to intercept and respond to the text messages and or the calls. Very likely, if you've watched this video, you've registered, and we'll be able to identify your name within our software system already. But please go ahead and type in your name if you do a text message to us, and make sure we got that information. So also emails also very important as well too. Anyway, look forward to working with you. Give us a call. We'll talk through it. No charge. And if I can help anybody else, just forward the information to them, and be happy to talk with them as well too. Thank you, and God bless. Have a good evening.